So a warm welcome to our series, The Open Space of Application Operations within SAP BTP. So this is an overview of the series, and today we are focusing on, let me look at my cheat sheet, on monitoring, alerting, and remediations on failed messages and events in SAP Event Mesh for your cloud app. I am Tanya from the Global User Groups organization. A warm welcome to our session. So this here is an overview of our session today, what our expert Bizar Simirnov, product manager at SAP, will talk about. But before I hand over, I would like to quickly provide information of another series, which is the universe of SAP BTP in a nutshell, of which our series today is a companion series. And I would like to advise to have a look at the series because we have a customer and a partner presentation coming up in June. And also, I would like to share with you the episode 6 of the SAP Garage series on June 7th. The topic will be synchronize account data between SAP S/4HANA and third-party CRM. And as usual, I would like to bring your awareness to all the practitioner forums that we have for you that might be of interest. So the Garage series I just mentioned, every first Wednesday. We have screen personas every third Wednesday, every third Thursday, SAP Fiori, and a practitioner forum on business technology platform, and every second Tuesday, a practitioner forum on SAP Build Process Automation. And with this, I would already like to hand over to my colleague, Bizar Simirnov. Over to you, Bizar.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Nice having you all here for a second time for me, having the pleasure to step in and go through the use cases and hands-on experience on the products that I'm involved in as a product manager, the alert notification service, and the SAP automation pilot. And just before moving forward, just for your information, in the background, we have our colleague Boris Zarsky, who is also a product manager responsible for the overall SAP BTP DevOps story. And he's so glad to be around and answering any questions that you can post anytime as in YouTube as questions. So we will be glad to answer these immediately, as I mentioned by Boris, or some of these will be answered at the end of the sessions, or if we are running for some reason out of time, we will be answering these offline. So now let me share my screen and start going through the use cases that I have prepared. So, as I mentioned, that's the second session, and our main focus is going to be the SAP Event Mesh, in the sense that using that product from the SAP portfolio, we can build applications that will be possible for these applications to consume the messages or events in an asynchronous manner. So the event mesh, it might act as an intermediate layer. And here it comes the very good question. What will happen if for some reason your application, it's not possible to consume a message that is available in the event mesh queue that you have defined? And I will try to answer that question, introducing the capabilities for the alert notification service and the automation pilot. So, however, before moving forward, just to make sure that we are on the same page, during the previous session, I've been going in a lot of details explaining the capabilities of the alert notification service. But just as a very quick introduction, the alert notification service, it is a real-time alerting engine. Using that alerting engine, which is provided by the BTP cockpit, we can ingest events from different sources of events, as the ones listed on the left side. Then using the UI of the alert notification, we can filter those events, create conditions, and then bind the conditions to particular actions, and the actions are displayed on the right side of that diagram. So we can send immediate alerts through Slack, emails, strategic ops platform, bind the alert notification to automated remediation actions such as the automation pilot, or use custom HTTP webhooks to extend the use cases. And if you're interested in more details, just make sure to double check the previous session from that webcast series. Then, as a very, very quick introduction for the automation pilot, similar to the alert notification service, the automation pilot, it is just an extension when it goes to the ops automation. And as we can figure out by the name, it is a low-code, no-code automation engine, as well provided as a product from the SAP BTP cockpit that can be enabled. It provides a UI, so we can create and model, keep and execute the needed commands from the automation pilot itself. The commands can be executed by different manner. During the demo, we're gonna see either we're gonna trigger the commands manually through the automated pilot scheduler, or through ops platform or services. In our case, that's gonna be webhooks and the alert notification service. And once the command gets executed by the automation pilot, the service itself can communicate and trigger that command to various destinations, such as BTP resources, third-party ops tools, or like we can interact pretty much to any custom service or application that supports the REST API. As well, we're gonna see how we can use the different requests to APIs to generate tokens and pass those tokens and continue a command that gets modeled and that gets kept within the automation pilot. And as well, if you're looking for more details about the automation pilot capabilities, just double check the previous session from that webcast series. So that's the theory that I have prepared for you for that session. And it's much less compared to the previous time. So now let's jump into the action and actually go through the use cases that we have on the table for today. So during the previous session, we have seen in action the use case number 1, which was the synthetic monitoring for API checks for your mobile application that is developed on SAP app builds. And yeah, just as a reference, if any one of you have missed that and this use case, it's interesting, just double check the recording. So I'll be bypassing that slide because we have covered that in details already, and jumping to the second use case that I have prepared. And actually I have it from the previous time. And I will be showing to you that use case just before moving to the SAP Event Mesh. So how that works. Let's say, and it is in addition to the web application that we have seen the previous time. Back in the time over there, like we've seen how that mobile application is consuming data from a public API, which is completely fine, right? But also I was looking in the SAP app builds and the capabilities that it's possible to be applied and used by that product. And it is possible actually to build an OData service in your HANA cloud and actually to create that OData service and expose it to the web application. So the web application or mobile application, whatever, your cloud application can consume that data from your HANA cloud, which is really awesome. And there's a lot of tutorials how that can be done and documentation. I wouldn't go in that direction because that's not the focus of today's meeting and webinar. So what was interesting from my perspective was that in addition to the API endpoint checks and response that we were validating the previous time, I was wondering if we are building a web application that consume that REST, that OData service, how we can make sure that your HANA cloud it is available. And is there like a certain mechanism from the HANA cloud that will allow us to make sure that your application actually communicates to the HANA cloud, and the HANA cloud it is up and running? And here it goes the answer. So based on the recommendations, there's a provided REST API by the HANA Cloud. It's called HANA Cloud Metric Service REST API. And that's a link to the documentation. So I will simply access that one. So if we open the documentation from the HANA Cloud REST API, we can figure it out that, let me just zoom it in, that out of the box, once you provision your HANA Cloud instance, you might get an access to the overview of available metrics. And they're exposed through the metric service API. And of course, we need to go through a certain authentication in order to be getting that data for our HANA Cloud instance. But I was really excited to see the amount of possible resource usage metrics that can be consumed by calling that available metrics REST API for the HANA Cloud. So yeah, the most obvious that we're gonna use for our use case is the first one, which is HDB accessible, and with this with this gauge, and it returns like response whether or not your HANA Cloud it is available. In example, if the value is 1, then your HANA Cloud it is available. If the value is 0, it is not available. And we're gonna see even in addition that the response it is for an interval of 30 seconds. So actually we get an array of, let's say, 20 pings which were made by your HANA Cloud, and which return either 1 or 0 for each ping that was made, specifying whether or not your HANA Cloud was available. So we're gonna see that in detail. So it's quite cool thing to identify if the HANA Cloud it is available. Also, we can play with different conditions. So maybe there's a network issue and your HANA Cloud was not available just for the very first ping, or just a ping among those 20 or so pings return 0, but that wouldn't mean absolutely that the HANA Cloud it is not available. So we can create certain conditions to specify that, but we're gonna see that in a second. So however, if we scroll down the list, we can see that API returns a lot of other possible parameters which we can explore further. Just like looking into that list, we can check and get details about the disk size, the write time, the write size, the read size, and so on and so on and so on. So yeah, I think that provides a lot of potential even for other use cases, and therefore was really interesting to explore that API and the option to monitor the HANA Cloud using that API. So that being said, if we look into our slide and use case over again, so what we're gonna be doing, So we're gonna create a command within the automation pilot. That command will be checking periodically the REST API that we just have seen, whether or not your HANA Cloud it is available. And as I mentioned, we're gonna receive an array of different responses that were executed. Pretty much the response, just one response looks like that one, but we're gonna get really an array. So actually we can build a logic within the automation pilot command that we would like to identify whether or not the latest 3 checks are zeros or ones. And if all of the latest 3 checks are returned as zeros, then meaning that the HANA Cloud is not available, then the automation pilot will consider that response as a failure, meaning that the HANA Cloud is not available. And then the automation pilot will be triggering an event, a custom event towards the alert notification service. In the previous webinar, we have seen how that's doable. So I wouldn't go in details during that demo into that particular use case. However, it's going to be working and we're going to see the end result, but I wouldn't pay attention on that step. Furthermore, of course, the triggering that event to the alert notification service, the alert notification will be filtering that event, and based on the conditions, we'll be sending a notification to our DevOps team. In our case, the DevOps team, that's going to be my inbox and my Microsoft team channel. So we're going to see the alerts. However, as an extra step, because the automation pilot, ideally, it is possible to apply further remediation action. So in our use case, what I've been specifying that if certain situation occurs and in 3 consecutive responses by the REST API of the HANA Cloud, we get zeros and the HANA Cloud is not available, then the automation pilot, in parallel of sending the event to the alert notification, the automation pilot will be performing an automated remediation action, which in our case, it's going to be starting the particular HANA Cloud instance automatically. And then once the command completes, the HANA Cloud will be back to life again. So pretty much that's the use case. Now, let's see how it gets implemented. But just before going to the UI of the automation pilot and the HANA Cloud Central and so on, let me just share some details, and I'll be showing my Postman client, so we can get a better understanding about the REST API and what exactly the automation pilot will be doing. So first, let's look into the HANA Cloud. That's my HANA Cloud that I have been created, and that's the instance ID. And yeah, it says BTP webinar, the instance ID, it's something unique, right? And then I will be creating my service keys. I will be just going here. And then as an API, as a URL, we see actually the API which we can call in order to get the needed token, which we're gonna be used later on for accessing the REST API and getting the needed metrics for our HANA Cloud. So now, just let me open my Postman here. Right. So we're gonna use the get parameter, and that's the endpoint needed for the generating the OAuth token. Then as a grant type, we use the client credentials based on the service key that I just have shown. I take my client secret as a password, and then I take my client ID as a username, and by just sending that request, yeah, here it goes. I see the generated access token. Right. Then as a second parameter here for you, I have prepared the endpoint of the HANA Cloud Metrics REST API. So the gateway URL, as per the HANA Cloud documentation, it goes as HTTPS API Gateway Orchestration. Then you need to add the service instance ID. That's the service instance ID as per the one that we have seen for my HANA Cloud. This one, right? And yeah, and then in order to get all possible metrics which can be get from that API, we simply should input /definitions. And then within the authorization, I have specified the type authorization, which is OAuth2. And within the available tokens, I will just paste the latest token that we just have generated. Then I will be sending that request now. And here it goes. As a response, we see all possible metrics which can be collected from that REST API. And pretty much that's similar to the documentation that we have seen. But it gets a bit of more details on exactly what can be collected. And for each of the metrics, you get the resource type, the resource name, dimensions, descriptions, interval, and further details as aggregations and so on. So for our use case, as I mentioned, I took that one. So HANA Cloud, HTTP resource type, and HDB accessible. So yeah, based on that, I have prepared actually my third request here. Simply, I will replace the previous token with the latest one that I have generated. And yeah, the calling the API, it's absolutely the same URL, gateway URL, and then it goes service instances, and then you should input the service instance of your HANA Cloud, and then as values, you specify the name of the parameter, which is HDB accessible. And in our use case, the HANA Cloud, it is up and running, right? So we will be getting, as I mentioned here, the intervals, right? And we see the timestamp and the value which is available for that ping, for that specific timestamp for our HANA Cloud instance. And if we just scroll down, we can see that at some point here, because I was stopping before the demo the HANA Cloud, my HANA Cloud instance was not accessible, then it was accessible over again, and so on and so on. So yeah, here it goes first. And yeah, just one note, the latest goes there at the bottom of the list. So if you'd like to see the latest state of your HANA Cloud, you need to scroll down to the very bottom of those requests and see the values. So that being said, yeah, that's a kind of some context how we can play with that REST API of the HANA Cloud. And in example, if I stop the HANA Cloud, it will sometime will be needed, and some of those responses at the bottom will start returning zeros for the specific timestamp intervals. But so now the question is how we can model that use case using the automation pilot and the alert notification service. So that's the HANA Cloud Central, which says that the HANA Cloud it is up and running. I will keep it up and running for now. And then I'll be jumping into the HANA Cloud, into the automation pilot UI. So that's the command that I have prepared for this use case. And we're going to see in details how it is modeled and what exactly it does. So to be frank, it's not that complicated. So as input keys here, we have all the details that we have seen as parameters that I have used in the Postman in the course executed by the Postman client. In example, HANA client ID, HANA client secret, the token URL, actually that's the URL which was needed to generate the OAuth token, and the unique HANA service instance ID. And I have generated all of these parameters and actually inputs into a catalog, which is HANA Cloud Credentials BTP webinar. And it's much more easy for me to reference available inputs doing that. So then, in addition, I've been adding details on alert notification credentials, because the automation pilot, it has the integration needed to the alert notification in order to create that custom event that it's going to be needed if the HANA Cloud it is not available. So the automation pilot should be possible to communicate to the alert notification service. And yeah, that's used as credentials for I have used that input catalog to specify the URL of the alert notification service, the user, and the password, which are also available in your service keys for the alert notification service instance that you have provisioned. Like you can take this from the service keys from the alert notification service and input them in the automation pilot to do the needed integration. Then, yeah, BTP technical user. It's a technical user that I have created for my BTP sub account, and that it's be needed only if I try to restart certain service instance or application. In our use case, that's going to be needed to start the HANA Cloud. And right, then that being said, yeah, as we see the command, the whole command, it's distributed in a couple of executions. So the first one, it's pretty much generating the token that it's going to be needed for the further actions, which is to ping the HANA Cloud. But first, how to generate the token? I have used the command HTTP sensitive HTTP request. So from that command, I have used the get, and here we see the execution input HANA client token URL, the token URL that we have seen in the the token URL, which is that one, on top of the HANA Cloud Service Instance URL. Yeah, then here as a password, yeah, that's the client secret for the binding keys. As a user, it's the input from the HANA client ID. And then, yeah, once that execution gets completed, we can go and we can actually ping call the REST API with a value name specified as HDB accessible. Then just one important note, it's once we are building that command within the authorization header, we need to specify that we are transitioning the OAuth token that was generated in the previous execution here, get token, into this execution. So how to do that? If actually, yeah, once you create the command, and you have an option to edit the parameters, right? And then within the authentication, you can specify the authentication type to be authorization header, and within the authorization header with JQ expression, like we can specify that we would like to keep the bearer token, which is the output of the body from the execution get token, and we want to modify it to object access token. Right. And then something that we do, because like as I mentioned, the top at the top of the response of the REST API of the HANA Cloud, we're gonna see not the latest, but the oldest codes from the HANA Cloud. Therefore, like we do a reversing of the response so that the latest codes, whether or not the HANA Cloud was available, will be displayed at the very top of the response. So to object dot data zero values and pipe reverse, it's the expression that will reverse the response. Right. Then we get the URL of the REST API of the available HANA Cloud metric, similar to the one that we have seen in the Postman. Then from the execution, we take the input from the HANA service instance, and then that's how we compile the URL. Then once we get the responses from this step, we need to identify what are the next steps. So here it comes the conditions which we play, which we specify within the automation pilot to identify if the HANA Cloud it is available or not. And as I mentioned, we would like to get 3 consecutive responses, and those 3 actually the latest 3 consecutive responses for that response to be 0. And then the automation pilot will consider that the HANA Cloud was not accessible. And how we are doing that? So within the command here, which is a command provided from our catalog, send alert notification service event. That's a command designed for the automation pilot to send an event, a custom event towards the alert notification service. So by using that command, we can specify what condition we would like to be applied. So in our case, we said, all right, we're gonna take the output body of the execution ping HANA Cloud, and that's gonna be converted to an array. And we would like to take the latest 3 responses, and then the value should be 0. And if that's false, meaning that the response is going to be 0, then we're going to consider the command to be the HANA Cloud to be failed. And then the automation pilot will be ingesting that event. And here we specify the object of the event, which is like already we have covered that in the previous demonstration. So we are creating a custom event with all the needed attributes for the alert notification service, such as event type, subject, and so on. I wouldn't go through all of these in details, but pretty much like we create that custom event with all possible data that we consider that it's important. And then, we use the password and the URL and the user that it's available from the service keys in our alert notification service. So then with that execution, we are covering the step of the automation pilot communicating to the alert notification that the HANA Cloud is not available. However, we would like the automation pilot to do the final execution in this use case, which is trying to restart the HANA Cloud. And Then here it comes as well a provided command from our catalog, which is start HANA Cloud instance. And and here it comes the kind of a value proposition to the automation part, because on top of all the capabilities and flexibility, like you can benefit and build that command with an ease. Simply like you need to add it as an execution to your command, and then replace the needed parameters with the available data. In our use case, yeah, since I already know the region of the HANA Cloud and I have prepared that into the HANA Cloud details here, HANA Cloud instances BTP webinar. So the region is CF EU10. Then the resource group, actually, that's the space where the HANA Cloud was provisioned. The resource name, it's the name of the HANA Cloud, and the sub account, that's the name how I was actually I took that sub account name from the one that was applied to my sub account at the moment that was created. So yeah, it's quite simple to simply replace the needed parameters with the parameters with the needed inputs. So I already have done that. Then yeah, here it's the part of the command where we need the condition, the technical user. So as a user, I use the BTP technical user that I have added by myself, and the needed password. And as a condition, yeah, obviously we use absolutely the same condition. Actually, the sending of the custom event to the authentication and the starting of the HANA Cloud, they are executed in parallel. Here, simply, we see it as a sequence. But in reality, they are executed in parallel. And then as an output, we can see check ping. We can see the output of the body. Pretty much the output of the body will look like something as that one. Yeah, we're gonna see all the intervals that were returned as a string. The token won't be visible since it's gonna be a sensitive. Is HANA Cloud available? That's gonna be the condition that we have created. So we're gonna see whether or not what was the response based on our logic, and we also gonna see the result of the HANA Cloud start command. So yeah, that being said, since that's a command that in my understanding should be scheduled, but because like for now I would like to be executed right now, this is why I'm triggering it manually. So yeah, over again, now I do not expect the command to be doing anything with my HANA Cloud, because it is up and running, right? So then looking into the output, yeah, we see all the intervals as I mentioned as a string, and we also see that is HANA Cloud available? Check. The response is set to true. Fine enough. So now it comes actually the tricky point where we would like to stop the HANA Cloud in question.
Bisa, short question. There was a question in the chat for the email sent via the alert notification service, if it's possible to have attachments passed via the invoking event. You can point out the options what we have there.
Yeah. As of now, it is not possible to have an attachment, and the payload it's it's limited to the email payload. It's limited to 10,000 characters. So in example, so here it goes. That's the custom event that we can ingest. And in addition, if I go to my event within the alert notification service, which is this one, right? So that's the subscription, and that's the particular action sent to BSER. So here it goes. We could, and that's the paywall template. So the maximum that we can do is to customize that paywall template to up to 10,000 characters. But attachments, as of now, it's not possible to be sent out.
Thanks a lot, Peter. That clarifies the situation. Thanks.
Yeah, more than welcome. Thanks, Boris, for pointing this. Right. So now I have started, actually, I have initiated the process of stopping my HANA Cloud. It will take, now it says stopped. So bear with me. Here we see that's the postman over again. And here we see that the value was 0, was 1, the last time that we were triggering that. So yeah, now we see that the value here is 0. And if I refresh, let's see how much time will be taking, like for a second and the third call to be sent and actually change to zeros. Now, yeah, we see that actually the latest 3 calls now are marked as zeros for my HANA Cloud. So now in theory, if I go back and yeah, from the executions, right. Now in theory, if I trigger over again the very same command that was executed successfully, and if I go back to my HANA Cloud, we have seen that the label, the status here was set as stopped, and now it says starting, right? And if I go back to the automation pilot command, we see that the start HANA Cloud, it is in process. Now, if I check my inbox, that's the alert sent as an email by the alert notification service, and as an event body, we see the event message that was ingested from the automation pilot. And yeah, as an input, we have the service instance ID. Also, we have details that now the automation pilot proceeds with automated start of the HANA Cloud. We see the link of the action that was created. By default, we get all of those details, which are related to landscape details, resource details. They are ported from the automation pilot as part of the integration that we have between the two services, automation pilot and alert notification service. And even if I look into my teams here, because I have created an action from the alert notification towards the teams, as well, we see that error alert failed HANA Cloud availability check, and then we have the specific date. And yeah, we have the unique timestamp as well attached to the event details. And if I refresh the HANA, now it will take some time to actually start the HANA Cloud.
Peter, maybe that's a good opportunity to follow up on the previous question.
Mm-hmm.
There was the question if there are any plans to add it in the future. I mean, that there's currently the size limitation is, of course, makes sense and is understood. I mean, as far as I know, we did look into that, right? But there are no concrete plans, right?
Yeah. We did look into that one, and actually that's a very good question, because I can prepare some details for the third webinar, which is in a week time as of now. Why? Because during that demo, we're gonna look in details how reporting for the HANA Cloud checks, it's gonna be performed using the alert notification service and the automation pilot. So pretty much like there will be a couple of checks which the automation pilot will be checking against the HANA Cloud instance, and all of those findings, they will be generated as first as an email report, and secondly as a Jira ticket that will be ingested into our Jira, and the email report will be sent out as an email. But over again, it is even in that use case, it is not like a report that it's attached as an attachment, but the email report, it's like we're gonna use the email payload to customize the report of that email. Yeah, and Boris, you're right. We have been looking into that attachment capabilities feature request, and I would really like to collect more use cases, how and why that it's needed, and how that functionality will be used in order to make sure like we deliver. So if it's possible to share some details on the use cases, or like leave some email, or just send me an email to my email, which is biser.simeonov@sap.com. And I would really like to talk in further details. Actually, that's my email address, and just drop me an email, and yeah, we can discuss further that with you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Peter. And yeah, already made some advertisement for the next session. Very good.
Yeah, and I really hope that in the next session, at least as a possible workaround, we're gonna see, even without the attachment capabilities, how we can generate more complex emails and even reporting, right?
Sounds great. Thanks a lot, Peter, for the answer.
More than welcome. More than welcome. Right. So yeah, going back to the HANA Cloud. Yeah, now it says status running, and if I go back to the automation pilot, the command was completed, and we see we see the latest response from the HANA Cloud. We see that the check for the HANA Cloud availability was failed, and therefore the command was executed. So yeah, pretty much that was the use case, and I hope it was interesting. So yeah, I'm also glad that we had some questions. Now let's look into the other use case, which is a kind of less complicated. So how that works? As I mentioned, the event mesh can be used by our applications to either to push messages or events, and therefore to consume messages and events. So in our use case, what we're gonna see, it's a client that pushes messages into the event mesh queue. However, if within the SAP Event Mesh queue, we have an options to specify when a validity, time to leave of a particular message, or a retrieval attempts. Based on that configuration, if the message within the SAP Event Mesh queue does not get consumed, it can be configured in addition that message to be transferred to the dead message queue and to do not be lost. And here it comes the question: once we move messages into the dead message queue, what's next? And a potential use case here, inspired by some POC that we were doing internally in our team, also with Kaujan Simichийski, who is the product owner and who really supported that use case, is that we can use the automation pilot. So within the event mesh documentation, we can find out that actually there's actually here, there's a push and pull mechanism to consume the messages. Right. However, in our use case, because we don't want to, from the automation pilot, to call the event mesh once per 1 hour, and there might be some criticality in that use case. So therefore, instead of the pull-based model, we have told that the push-based model would make more sense, so that in case there's a message that goes into the dead message queue within the event mesh, the SAP Event Mesh will be pushing that message immediately to the automation pilot. And we're gonna be using, if I go back to here, so we're gonna be using the webhook mechanism, so that here is where you see the webhook. Let's say that's the event mesh. So the event mesh will be triggering a particular command, which is within the automation pilot, in order to consume that message and to send an alert to the alert notification service. Then, as a next step, the automation pilot, pretty much like we could terminate the use case till step number 5. So the automation pilot, based on that command, will be triggering an alert, and we're gonna be notified about that message stating, hey, there's like a message, there's a message in the dead message queue, check it out. But in addition, like a potential extension of that use case, it's that the automation pilot can restart automatically a Cloud Foundry application, which is, let's say, responsible to consume that message. And we can assume that if the message, if there's a message within the dead message queue, then for some reason that application, it's stuck, crashed, stopped, whatever, and does not consume those messages, and therefore a potential restart of that cloud application might fix the problem. Of course, the automation pilot can do many other stuff, but that was the most trivial in that use case. So then let's go to the event mesh. So that's the event mesh. Okay, maybe I need to rework. Let's see if here, all right, two-factor authentication has been enabled. Just a second.
Peter, just a quick time check. We have 8 minutes left.
Yeah, I will fit. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, that's the event message, and I have 2 clients. That's the one that I have used for the demo. So right over here, like we have couple of, actually we have 2 queues and 1 dead message queue. So if we check it out, and there's an option to test. I was testing those messages using the Postman and the REST API, but at the same time, I have figured out that everything that we can do with Postman, ingesting messages into the queues, similar as those type of requests here, we can do absolutely, the same thing using the UI of the event mesh, which is quite user friendly to be frank. So in example, now if I type test2, and if I publish the message, and just a second before I have pushed the message from the Postman, here we see like 2 messages have been pushed into the sales order 2 queue. Fine enough. However, for that particular queue here, I didn't I didn't specify a particular time to leave, nor I have specified a redelivery count. meaning that they will last, those messages will last in that queue. However, for sales order, for the first sales order queue, what I did, all right, okay. Just bear with me. Okay, for that particular dead message queue, here I have specified now that the max time to leave is going to be 10 seconds. Then the dead message queue, it's set to dead message queue, right? Maybe I need to refresh. Okay. Let's see. The noise. Right. All right, good. So what that mean? That means that once now I have specified here, just pause that one. All right. So now if I go and if I create a message in the sales order number 1, right? And if this message does not get consumed in 10 seconds, it will be moved to the dead message queue as the one that we have seen. Fine enough. And here it goes the question, how we can be notified about that particular situation. And then how the automation pilot can restart the application in question. And actually, that's the application in question. That's a very simple application that I have used, right? And yeah, then from the automation pilot perspective, here it comes a command. And right, and here it comes the command. It says Event Mesh dead message queue. It is a command that for which what we need, it is the body of the event message. And then all of that stuff that we see here, such as region, resource group, resource name, and sub account, they are needed later on to restart the HANA, to restart the application. So yeah, what is needed now for the automation pilot to ingest and actually notify the alert notification service about the dead message queue, it's absolutely the same command as the one that we have seen before, send alert notification service. Then within the data, we can specify whatever it's needed. For our use case, like we specified the event type set as DMQ and some body that there's a message in the dead message queue. The integration, it's absolutely the same as the one that we have seen. I have used the lock and unlock command simply to make sure that at that point, there won't be more attempts to restart that HANA, cloud application, as there might be multiple messages into the dead queue. And once the command gets triggered, I would like that command to be walked until the restart of the application does not get completed. And then to restart the application, I also have used the provided command, which is restart CF app, and for which I simply need a couple of inputs. As I mentioned, I need the region, I need the technical name of my Cloud Foundry space, which is available through the BTP UI, the resource name, that's the application ID, I also have it sub-account ID. I also have it, and I need a technical user similar to the one that I have used to restart the HANA Cloud in the previous step. I use absolutely the same user to restart the application. And now now we can build the endpoint so that once we have a dead message in the event mesh, we can the event mesh can call that endpoint in the automation pilot. And how that endpoint can be built? Simply, we need to go to the execution menu item, build event trigger. Then as a trigger type, we have to specify generic. As a command, I will choose my command, which is event mesh DMQ2. And as a mapping, I would like to take the body from the event mesh event. Right. So then I copy the URL, right? I have created a service account here for the event mesh, as you see. So simply I have a username and password. Then I go to the event mesh. I go to the webhook. And I simply create an event hook. I provide the webhook URL. And as an authentication, I use a basic authentication. And here, just I'm copy pasting a user that I have created and the password. All right. Now, yeah, we see that the webhook has been activated. So now if I go back and if I repeat absolutely the same thing, and that's the end of the use case. So I go and I type that I want to send a message in Q1, right? Then this message will be moved to that message queue. Right. Yeah, and you see that immediately has disappeared from here because the automation pilot command has been triggered. And since I have triggered two events, two messages in the dead message queue, that's how the walk mechanism works. Because now if we see that actually the second attempt was failed because the walk mechanism was applied. And here we see that the application has been restarted, and we have also notified the alert notification. And if I open my inbox, here it goes just now, an alert that I have received that alert because there was a dead message queue. If I open my Teams, those are the details. And yeah, if I also see in the output, I see that the previous state of the application was running. However, the application with this ID has been restarted. And indeed, if I go to the BTP, I'll see that the application has been restarted. So yeah, that's quite, in my opinion, interesting and powerful use case. And yeah, that's the end of that. And now, in case you have questions, just I'll be glad to step in. So Tanya, that was the end of the demo.
Actually, we are already over
Yeah.
the hour. I would suggest that if there are any questions, we don't have any open question now in the chat, but if any come up, to contact you, to comment in underneath this video. Yeah, or me, whatever, feel free to contact us. And we have a comment. This sounds like a nice cholesterol oversight to detect blockages. Event mesh and a smiley.
Nice.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Satish.
So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much. Bye from my
Thank
side.
you. Yeah, and thank you very much, Peter, for your excellent presentation once again. And I look forward to next week. And of course, a big thanks to our attendees for joining. I hope you had a lot of value from the session, and I look forward to seeing you next week again. And with this, have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.